Quazi here. I want to share something with you in this video that I've frankly never shared publicly before. I used to deal with massive amounts of anxiety, which still rears its ugly head to this day, though a lot less frequently. It all started 5 years ago, May of 2019, when I first decided to go all in on my business. I just at the time quit my full-time engineering job and decided that I didn't want to be miserable for the next 40 years of my life. Instead, I would pursue my passion of becoming a coach. There was an agreement that I had with my parents prior that if I could make 5K a month with my own business, they couldn't give me shit for not pursuing the traditional path. Now, being the immigrant parents that they were, they couldn't fathom not following the traditional 9-to-5 route, especially when I had a cushy, comfy job lined up for me. So my parents and I had a lot of conflict, especially me and my dad. I would remember that I'd feel anxious every single day when I was on this path. I was making YouTube videos with this pit of anxiety in my stomach. I had to make it, otherwise I was doomed to go back to this miserable job. That month of May, everything was hyper important. There was too much attachment to everything. I remember getting on calls with prospective clients and I was practically begging them to buy from me. The more I got attached to the sale or the outcome, the more they got turned off, and I kept resisting success. I remember getting dinner with my wife one night and I just couldn't be present with her because all I could think about was trying to make the business work. That month of May, I made absolutely zero in my business, and I just remember not being able to sleep, crying on my bedroom floor until it happened. I had a literal dark night of the soul, as you'd call it. Once I was able to confront my anxiety properly with this 3-step method that I want to share with you, I was able to have my first 8K month the following month. Everything turned around. 12K in July and my first $20,000 month in August of 2019. My life completely changed. In today's video, I want to share with you how to use anxiety to actually lead you to greatness. Why most people don't understand how to use anxiety and how overcoming this actually made me my first million at the age of 24. I'm really excited to share this with you. Let's get started. So for those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. My name is Quazi Johir. I've been making these videos for the last 5 years now, 6 years maybe. I've been able to go from being stuck, feeling miserable about my life, and destined to go to this 9-to-5 with no hope. And I desperately wanted to have freedom, make money online, and have some sort of a passive income source so that I can experience freedom in my life, travel, and not be stuck to a corporate job. Since then, I've been able to literally manifest every single thing that I've ever wanted beyond my wildest dreams. Met the love of my life, got married to her, have a beautiful child, have owned 2 homes, and make over $1 million a year. All of this I've been able to do because of all of the principles that I share on this channel, the deeper principles of reality creation. And if you master them, I'm very confident you'll be able to experience them too, because we've helped over 1,000 clients do this in their lives. Now, what really surprised me was even though I had achieved everything that I've ever wanted, I still felt anxious. And somebody once said that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And those words always rung true in my mind when I was experiencing a lack of fulfillment, anxiety. Because if you'd asked me 5 years ago if I would be experiencing this, I would have probably traded my soul at that time to experience what I'm able to experience on a day-to-day basis now. My journey towards dealing with anxiety and fear and uncertainty, it's been a long process. For some people, they are more genetically predisposed to dealing with it, but for most people, they can quickly retrain themselves in a very different way. That's what I want to share with you today, how to retrain yourself, reprogram yourself, how I did it, and how I honestly believe it allowed me to become way more successful than I ever thought possible. So to begin with, I would like for us to define anxiety in a very simple way. We all have this fundamental emotion. It's a feeling that we experience. We call this fear. Okay, fear is what is thought to keep us alive. Because if you're afraid of a very high precipice, you're not going to walk forward and jump. Otherwise, you would be plunged into your own death. So fear is to keep us alive biologically. But when you have fear, during caveman days, fear would literally keep us alive. And so we would avoid things that would be dangerous and stay in safety. We wouldn't take risks. But when you combine fear with uncertainty for the future and what it could hold, the conjunction of fear and uncertainty is what leads to anxiety. What does it mean to be anxious? When you feel anxious about something, you have an event or something that you are supposed to do, or something you're anticipating and you feel anxious about it, or something that hasn't happened yet that you're expecting to come in, but it hasn't come in, and so you're wondering, your mind is going all over the place. It essentially means you're in an out of balance condition. You feel internally out of balance, as opposed to when you are calm, collected, peaceful, joyous. There's not a lot of movement going on in your psyche. There's not a lot of restlessness. You are in balance. When you're in an out of balance condition, you start to attract circumstances and create more circumstances that put you more and more in an out of balance condition. And that's why people have cycles of self-sabotage, where they do really, really well, but then they get into this pattern of being anxious and overthinking everything. And so they make a wrong decision, then it's compounded by many other wrong decisions, which I have done many times in business, either playing it safe or just taking unnecessary risk, which are both consequences of internally being in an out of balance condition, or in your personal life, being in an out of balance condition. You start to act out in ways that you wouldn't normally act out in, which causes detriment to your relationships, your personal relationships. You are internally in an out of balance condition. What most people do is they try to think their way out of anxiety. Can you think your way out of a feeling? You may say, yes, if I can justify the feeling, I can think my way out of it. But really, one feeling causes many thoughts. Ponder on this for a second. When I have a feeling, the thoughts that accompany that feeling are there to justify the presence of the feeling itself. One feeling causes a multitude of thoughts. When you feel a state of inner nervousness, anxiety, fear, you try to justify why you feel that way. So what we're doing is we're escaping the feeling. Okay, we are escaping the feeling in trying to think about why we are feeling this way, trying to explain why, justifying the presence of that feeling, instead of dealing with the feeling directly. You see what's happening? We are escaping the source and going to the symptoms. The thoughts are the symptoms. When something happens in your life that triggers this feeling of anxiety, and typically it's traumatic events and how you've contextualized those events in your life. Something happened in the past that, maybe something happened with your business, or that feeling is reminiscent. So I ask you to think about this. When you think about memories, does the thought come up first or does the feeling come up first? This is a familiar feeling. When did I last experience this feeling? Every single feeling is unique. In the intensity of the feeling, in the type of feeling, it's very, very unique. No two feelings are the same. The feeling of joy that you have when your child accomplishes something versus the feeling of joy that you have when your brother or sister accomplishes something, they're distinctly different, right? They're different feelings. So we store thoughts with feelings. So feelings lead to thoughts. So now, if a feeling leads to many thoughts, why then do we try to think our way out of anxiety? Because that's all we know. To understand this better, we have to know the 4 ways in which we handle our feelings. The most detrimental way we deal with our feelings is through repression. This happens unconsciously, it's outside of our control. When we repress something, it goes into our unconscious, then shows up later on in our lives and haunts us in ways we don't understand why. So if you feel like you've been stuck with a certain pattern, you just can't explain why, there's clearly something repressed. A level above that is suppression. When we suppress something, it then leads to repression over time. A level above that is expression. When we express something, you feel angry, you punch someone, or you smash something, you express it. A higher level, a higher way to deal with feelings, which is great. But when you express it, part of the feeling gets handled correctly, because feelings are trying to find expression. They really are trying to find expression. But what's happening is you are actually running away from the feeling by expressing it in a reactionary way. When you react physically to how you feel internally, you're letting it find expression, a certain amount of it, but the rest of it gets suppressed and then repressed. The highest and the most effective way to deal with feelings, which is what I'm going to share with you in the 3-step method, is surrender. Learning to surrender and accept that feeling. It's kind of embracing that feeling and letting it run through you. So an example I can give you is when you stub your toe. The next time you stub your toe or something painful happens, instead of trying to run away from that feeling immediately, just stay with that feeling. Stay with the pain. Feel the pain in every single fiber of your toe. You'll see how quickly the pain subsides. Just like that, if we deal with anxiety in a similar way, we embrace it fully, and we accept it fully, it will pass. And I'm going to show you how to do that in the 3-step method. But before we get to that, we have to understand the nature of addictions. So here I have the addiction loop, which explains why we feel anxious, why you have trained yourself to feel anxious. Earlier on in 2022, around 2 years ago, I posted something on my Facebook that got a lot of attention and a lot of people inquired about it. I said, you're not seeing results because you're addicted to the struggle. How many times in your life have you told yourself that, oh, in order to get this, I need to work harder. I must struggle and I must, I can't take it easy. How many times have you told yourself to have what you want, you need to fight against some invisible force? Because you tell yourself this story, it becomes true. You need to work harder and kind of run yourself down to the ground to achieve the same thing that could have been easily achieved if you just did what was necessary. If you didn't have beliefs around it and you just saw what was necessary. If I want to accomplish X, Y, and Z in my business, theoretically, if you truly did believe that to achieve success and the kind of money that you want, all you needed to do was sit on the couch, you would probably achieve it. If you truly, genuinely believed it. But for most people, that's not within the context of their worldview. So it's difficult to accept that. There's a certain balance. So for most people, they're on the other end of the balance where they feel that it's completely impossible. And I was one of them. I thought in order to accumulate money and become wealthy and live the life that I wanted, I either had to be born that way or I had to be especially gifted some way. I think everyone is gifted one way or another, but they just haven't found out what they're really gifted at, or they haven't really owned it because they're ashamed of it, or they don't really believe it can make them money. For example, if you're an artist, you don't believe it will make you money, there's no money in it. You just haven't found a way to monetize it. That's all, right? You can do what you love, you just haven't found a way to monetize it yet. Doesn't mean you're never gonna find it. We tell ourselves these stories, we believe that we need to struggle harder than we actually do. And so the challenges in front of us, the obstacles, get larger and larger. We manifest these obstacles. Along this line, what does it mean to be addicted? How does addiction work? So when we have trained ourselves to feel anxiety, and I am a primary candidate for this, I'm always looking for things to be anxious about. When I had my record month in August of 2019, when I made my first 20K, I was very anxious because I was like, what if it doesn't happen again? Instead of enjoying it, rejoicing in it, I'm thinking, oh, what if I can't do it again next month? What if I can't do it the month after? What if, right? These what ifs, the uncertainty that I'm focusing on that because I've trained myself to feel anxious. Because I have trained myself to feel anxious, anything that happens, my thoughts are trying to justify that feeling of anxiety. Like, oh, but it's probably not gonna happen again. And so in this manner, we keep telling ourselves these stories, which gets repressed into our subconscious mind, which then gets reflected into our reality. Our reality reflects what we hold to be true subconsciously. To understand how to reprogram this pattern, we have to understand how the addiction loop works. At first, we have a trigger. In this example, the trigger could be a particular thought that you have, or you saw something in your environment. For me, it was the trigger of hitting a record month, which led to the action of worry. Trigger, the thought, the event that happened. The action was worry. And the reward, the third part of it is a reward. When we reward ourselves for a certain action that we take, we want to take more of those actions. So the reward for most people is they actually try to escape the feeling that they're feeling by rewarding that feeling with either binge eating, binge drinking, scrolling mindlessly on social media, which is all giving you dopamine. It's actually training you in a very harmful way to keep that behavior going. So the next time you find yourself anxious, don't escape it in something that rewards you. Instead, it's better to be with that feeling and stay with that feeling until that feeling finds full expression through you. So when we do this, your trigger is the thought, your action is the worry, your reward is you go and do something destructive that makes you feel those feelings of dopamine, gives you a dopamine rush. I recently realized this and how it affected me by the fact that I had felt stuck for like 2 years in my business, around 100K a month, like around 1.1 to 1.3 million a year. We could never surpass the 1.3 million year mark. And I realized it was because I had this subconscious fear of success. I believed that if I grew too much, there would be more problems, more issues to deal with. And so I felt anxious about hiring people and growing and giving responsibility away. Because I did that, And I continually had a trigger of the thought coming up of, oh, I want to grow. I actually do want to grow. But then the action was worry, worry, worry. And I was rewarding myself by escaping that, like, okay, let's just get back to work. Let's just get back to work. Let's just scroll on social media. And so I kept escaping that feeling again and again. And I trained myself to become more anxious and have this fear of success until one day, some life-changing event or something happens that kind of shakes you awake, which is like, hey, I've been stuck at this for this period of time. Why am I not growing? What's really happening internally? I'm taking the actions. I'm not a stupid person. Like, I'm intelligent enough to grow this. Why isn't it happening? What is subconsciously there that's blocking me? And that's what I found out, was that I had this subconscious fear of handling responsibility. And so I had to retrain myself to, hey, let's hire people. Let's give them responsibility. And sure, accept the fact that they are going to fuck up. It's going to happen. What do I have to lose if I'd never take the risk in the first place? That's what you need to ask yourself. For a lot of you, you're trying to do something, but you have a fear of doing that thing, but you can't confront that fear. You take the actions half-heartedly. You don't fully go all in on your business. You don't fully go all in on that strategy that you're trying out. You start to blame the strategy. You start to blame everything outside of you instead of taking responsibility and asking, hey, what is it subconsciously that's stopping me from getting to that next level? What belief am I holding to be true that's not serving me in moving forward towards what I want? When you figure out what it is you're holding to be true because it's convenient, you also have to find out what you're sacrificing by holding this belief. I was sacrificing all of the growth, all of the impact that we could potentially make with all the people in the world, because our program is helping so many people. And if I don't expand it and grow it, it's not going to reach as many people as it could potentially reach. I was sacrificing all of those just for the sake of holding this belief alive. And there's a great saying which goes, if you don't sacrifice for your dreams, then your dreams become the sacrifice. Through this 3-step method that I want to share with you right now, I was able to overcome that. And last year we did a record year. We finally broke through the 1.3 million barrier, did 1.7 million. And this year we're on track to doing more than 1.7. Now let's get to this 3-step method of surrender, which will allow you to overcome this anxiety, the subconscious thing that's blocking you, that's holding you back from getting to that next level in your life. Here's the 3-step surrender method. One of my clients recently just used this, Eric, and he says, the blockage in my solar plexus region went away after 10 rounds of incremental surrender. This was a game changer, thanks so much. So in our program, we call it the incremental surrender method. Here's a modified version that you can use right now. Step 1, whenever you're feeling this feeling and you have this trigger of anxiety, what we want to do is, instead of getting to just worry, 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 we want to change that to accept, accept, accept. We're fully accepting it. By accepting it, you are utilizing the surrender mechanism. You are fully letting that feeling arise instead of suppressing parts of it, expressing parts of it, and repressing parts of it. So instead of escaping the feeling through whatever it is you're doing, through that reward, instead of escaping it, we're turning inwards. Instead of the feeling making us reactive and turning outwards, no, we're going back in and we're accepting it. The only way to overcome your fear, your lack of confidence, is by doing the thing that you're most afraid of. Accept that this feeling is coming up and it's okay. This feeling too has the right to exist. This too has the permission to exist. It's just a feeling after all, right? It's not that big a deal. Once you've gotten to that point of acceptance, we want to do this breathing protocol. And this is what the incremental surrender method is. You want to take an in-breath, focus in your body. Because remember, the feelings are in our body. There's a point in your body, typically in the solar plexus region from the throat to the stomach, where there's a pit of anxiety or feeling, a strong knotted feeling. Imagine like a knot that you have in your back, but it's more of an energetic knot or an emotional knot that you are experiencing right now. Take a deep breath into that knot. So you inhale for 3 to 5 seconds into the knot, and then exhale for 3 to 5 seconds again, and get the knot out. And you do this as many times as needed until you feel that knot getting lighter and lighter and it almost passes out of your mouth. You know, when you're exhaling out through the mouth? It's almost like a method of NLP where you visualize the feeling, the strong feeling that's been holding you back. It gets lighter and lighter. You're letting the energy of it out more and more. And you'll see after doing it for 3 to 5, even 10 times, however many is necessary, that feeling, it becomes neutralized. The third step to this is when you've neutralized it and you feel lighter, you immediately want to pattern interrupt. interrupt that pattern by having a focus shift. So now you want to focus on what you do want, what you have in your life that you're grateful for. Either one of the two. Because what we're used to focusing on is what we don't have and what we don't want. That's what keeps this cycle of anxiety going. I don't want a month where I don't hit 20K, or I don't want to fail the next month. Oh, I don't have this. Because for me, it was like everything in my business is perfect, but this one thing is just, if this one thing were just right, everything would be great. But nothing's ever going to be perfect. This is perfection. Nothing is perfect is perfection. Shift your focus to what do I want? What do I have that I'm grateful for? And in this way, you're going to change this loop. Next time your trigger, whatever arises, your immediate reaction might be to become anxious again. But then you neutralize that anxiety by doing this protocol, and then you reward yourself by focusing on what you're grateful for and what you want instead. And over time, you're going to rewire this pattern and train yourself to think more about what is wanted and what you do have. And by the way, when you start to focus more on what is wanted and what you already do have, you're going to get more of what is wanted and what you do have. This is the mirror principle of reality. The mirror principle of reality states that whatever attitude is what's reflected and manifested into physical reality. Our internal attitudes are mirrored out into physical reality. And that's what helped me for the last 4 years. I actually just made a comprehensive video on the mirror principle right here. You can just click right here to access it. There's 4 main laws to the mirror principle. And it's the thing that I use to literally manifest everything that I've ever wanted in my life. And I actually made a comprehensive guide that will explain everything in there, completely free for you to access. It's literally on YouTube. So you can go right here to watch that, and I'll see you in this next video right now. Thanks.